And hello, everyone. Happy Friday. Welcome to Get a Grip with Coach Elix. I am your host, Coach Elix, and with me is my co-host. Who are you? Who the hell are you?
I am Steven, the medium. Would you like me to take over?
Well, you are sort of going to take. That's why I was pausing because I am your host. But today's conversation is really a conversation where we're probably going to flip scripts, and you're going to be asking me questions about the subject matter.
I love that
Because it really is a subject matter that is it's part of my story, and it's about adoption and what that journey of hope and belonging looks like. So, if you know somebody who was adopted, if you are adopted, if you understand or want to know or understand what that journey looks like, I think today's show may give you some perspective, interesting perspective, and into what the journey looks like. And I'm not sure, Stephen, that we could do this in one show alone, but we're going to give it a try, see what it looks like.
Well, yeah, and it's also for people that adopted.
Did I not say that, or did I skip that?
I think you skipped it, but I could be wrong. I'm not perfect.
Well,
Even though many people think I am.
Yeah, and by many people,
I mean me.
yeah, exactly. But nevertheless, that's what today's subject is all about, and I'm really excited to share my story with you. Very intimate part of my story with you. Very, very few people, aside from my family, really know this story, Stephen, before it goes into a book. So this is going to be quite the journey for me and for you.
And I came up with it. You asked me, it's just going to be the two of us, and do I have any suggestions for the subject of a show? And it was like as soon as you asked, Felix, it just came right in front of me, and thought, what better way to not only talk about just an interesting subject matter, but have an expert on it because you lived it. I mean, I think that's wonderful.
Yeah. So, by the way, I'm looking at the live stream, and you have some guy named Dennis Odette. You know him.
No.
Who is dissing you.
Scusi?
Who is dissing you about knowing the truth about your perfection. And I sense a little bit of an edge in that comment. Just saying, Stephen, just saying.
I would respond if I knew who he was. David, what? I have no idea. No idea.
We love Dennis. He can't help himself, but we love his wife more. But nevertheless, here we are. So, Stephen, let's talk a little bit about what's going on. What are you up to, and what should we be telling our audience today?
Well, we start with, let's bump up the lights and see if anyone has any questions. We can start with that.
Oh my God! If you don't know where this comes from, by the way, then I don't know what to do, because this is from the
we can't be friends.
Carol Burnett show, and I know it because I'm forced to watch some of these shows with him quite a few times. So
hey, listen,
anyway.
I would stay up and make myself stay up on Saturday nights till 10 o'clock. So, and I was tired, but I would stay up to make sure I watched the Carol Burnett show.
Yeah, you make me stay up.
Yeah, that was, well, that was a long time ago. Like when I was just a toddler, I was a kid. I make you stay up for the DVDs that I have of Carol Burnett. Actually, I have the entire series, the 11 seasons it was on, I have. So, yes. But I did. I'd stayed up till 10 o'clock, and I remember, I don't know where my mother was. I don't remember where I was, but I just remember, I think I was at my aunt's house or so, and she said, did your mother let you watch Carol Burnett? I'm like, of course. So, and she did. So, Carol Burnett was a great show. It was just that it was later for someone, at a particular age at 10 o'clock. So, in any case, What's going on with me? There's so much going on with me, and well, so much going on with both of us. We're always just very, very busy, and I am always working on stuff. I have a new class that is starting Wednesday, which I am really, really excited about. So it is Healing with Sumadhi, and it is one of the last steps in the sort of the yoga story. It's the 8th step, and of course, as I mentioned, I think maybe last week, you may think that I would start with the first step, but I can't do anything just the way it's supposed to be, right? It's just not this just not what I do. So I'm starting with the 8th, and it is going to be an amazing class. So you can find all of that on stephenthemedium.com website. And October 5th, I have a bigger event. I think the capacity is 100 seats, I think, in Rainham, which is going to be amazing. And as a matter of fact, this past Tuesday, I just did an event in my office in New Bedford, and that was incredible. That is 20 people. 20 people get read, and it was such an uplifting, I don't know, like life-changing event. It really it was.
But that it can be said that is what happens at every event that you do. It's always uplifting, and it can be life transforming for you.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I think so.
I've been there. I've been there, so I know. I'm telling you, just even for me, watching you sitting, on the sidelines, supporting you, it's for me personally, it's uplifting and transforming every single time.
Yeah, I mean, I do. That's why I love doing what I do, and definitely you can feel, or I can feel the energy when I first start an event, and the energy as the event's ending. The energy is completely different. It's more awakened. It's more potent. It's just pretty amazing, because even if you're crying and it's tears, which it always is, of tears of just being so happy or hearing from your loved ones and you haven't heard from a long time. And especially, obviously, the point of this is that your loved ones, I always tell people, shadow you every day. So when I do readings, they just start giving me these experiences that you've shared that I wouldn't have any idea you've experienced. And those are really the ones that bring it home. Like, people look at me like, how do you know that? And, when it's translated to, it's not me, it's your mother, your father, your dog, whomever it is. So it was really great. And the event I just talked about, October 5th, that is at the American Legion in Rainham, 291 Mill Street. So you can also, just like I said, get information to get tickets through my website.
That's awesome. And I look forward to meeting any of you that show up at any of Stephen's events, because I am always there. By the way, Marie is also listening. She just put it on
Hi, Marie.
The live stream. Hi, Marie. Hope you're feeling better. And Stephen, I also, believe it or not, you've helped me a lot with this, but I also have an upcoming course program that I am gonna make public. It's called Unlock the Power of Neuroscience in Conversations, Teamwork, Leadership for you and your organization. So it's a program that can be done one-on-one, individually, or in a group. So if you work in a business and this sounds like a conversation that would benefit your team, your managers, your leaders, or anyone who is an influencer, a business influencer in your company, this is something that I highly recommend. And you were very instrumental in helping me work on the promotion. That's going to be going out very, very, very soon. We'll put it on social media.
You know what's amazing, Elix, is how similar our lives are and our journeys are, because as you were talking about this new program, which is phenomenal, I have been around for so long since you've started this business, and I have seen firsthand the transformation that people that you are coaching experience. and it's just a 180 of pre and post. It's mind blowing how people are completely changed after working with you. And the most wonderful thing about what you do is it's like bringing, camels that need water, but they can't find water, and bringing them to the lake and then letting them go. And
Yes.
it's almost like they are now back on their journey and their passion and their purpose. And that's what you do for people. So, and like you said, of all levels, it doesn't matter what level. So it's incredible.
So I'm super excited and to be offering this to uh, clients and the general public because it is a course that can be done. It's for anyone. It's for everyone. It's really about how to better understand our own neurochemistry, and what can cause those negative conversations and how to transform those negative conversations, that negative dialogue, into a positive and rewarding and productive dialogue. And who would say no to that, right, Stephen? So,
Well, and one last thing I will tell you is that I think I know everything I just said. The result of that is based on who you are and how you step into your clients. I have seen other coaches, I know other coaches, and I've seen, maybe not deliberately or not, but coaches that talk sort of down to the person and not at the level of the person, not making the person feel completely trusted and safe, and then I can open up to this, even though you're very, stern with what you want to get across, but you're also very sensitive. And it's just, and you explain things. So even hearing like something like neuroscience, I mean, you may think, oh my God, that sounds way too much for me. I don't even understand it. You break it down so that people can actually understand what that's all about. And I think it's so key for people to like. I always say, if you're looking for a therapist, some people think, okay, I need a therapist, I find a therapist or found a therapist, and I just have to stick with them. And that is so not the way it works, because you
yeah,
have to mesh with the therapist. And I know that firsthand. I've been through several therapists when I was going through therapy, and that you have to find the right one, just like you have to find the right doctor or the right stylist for your hair. You have to find the right one that makes you feel good, and
you
when you
you
walk out,
yeah, you have to have like that connection, that personal connection. It
yeah,
has
exactly.
to be
When
there.
when you walk out of that office or wherever, you have to feel good about yourself, and that's what differs you from so many others in your arena. Is it's just because that's what you do.
Well, thank you, thank you, thank you. But we also do need to take a commercial break, Stephen, because we have a show to do. So let's do a commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about an intimate topic for me today. It's all about adoption. And the question we're going to be asking is, what and why? And I'll be talking about my personal story, and we'll look at the reasons, the benefits, the challenges, and support that adoption brings to children and parents alike. So we are going to take a small break. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
best day of my life. My life.
And hello, everyone, and welcome back to Get a Grip with Coach Elix. I'm your host, Coach Elix, and with me, my silly co-host,
Stephen Frederick.
Stephen the Medium, who is also my amazing, yet very, very silly husband. And I say silly because during the break, all he does is just be foolish. And then he just laughs at his own foolish jokes. But anyways, that's why we love him. So today we are talking about adoption, and there are many reasons why people choose adoption in the world today. And these may be among those reasons: infertility issues, single parenting, same sex, parents who are looking to adopt, or just something as simple as being willing to give a child a loving home because you cannot. And this topic hits very close to home because I am adopted and I have a very unique story. So that's it. Stephen, is there anything, how would you like to go about having this conversation?
Well, I think, to start this, I think you should give a recap of your life, about your adoption, so that at least that's the base and people can understand and relate to your experience as being adopted.
Okay, so let's start with that, and I'll try my very best to simplify it as best as I can. But it all started when I was 18 years old. I left Puerto Rico right after high school to go to Emerson College here in Boston. And so while here in Boston, I was living with a female roommate, and we were very close. We had a very, it wasn't a romantic, but it was an intimate relationship. And at some point, she was upset with me because I had invited a cousin of mine to stay over because he was looking for, perhaps find a better job, find a better opportunity. And I thought, well, I have an apartment. You can come over and, you can explore and perhaps get something better for yourself. He was also from Puerto Rico. And eventually, he sort of overstated his welcome. That's really what happened. And my roommate, Agnes, at the time, she got really upset, and she was upset because she didn't feel comfortable. She couldn't hang out, in the way that her and I would hang out in the apartment. And she kept asking me, when are you going to ask him to move? When are you going to ask him to move? And I did. But because he was family, it was really difficult to get him to move. So one night, I remember I was in the kitchen. I was doing dinner for the two of us because I don't think he was there. And just out of the blue, we're talking about the subject, and she said, "I just don't understand why you care so much about him. He's not even your cousin." And I remember I was cooking, like staring at whatever, the pot at the kitchen. And I turned around and I said, What did you say? And she said, "Well, he's not your cousin, because you're adopted." And in that moment, life stopped. I was 18 years old. I was brand new in a whole new city with very little people. I had some family here, but really my entire family, my parents, everyone was in Puerto Rico. My entire support structure was in Puerto Rico. And for me, life stopped in that moment because I had no idea what was going on. But at the same time, Stephen, it was almost like, I don't know, something happened in that moment, because then it was like, and I think you've expressed this with your own mediumship. It was like somebody flipped a switch, and then I started getting all kinds of memories to come into the surface. about my life. So the first thing I did is I left the room. I went upstairs where my brother lived, and I said I need to make a phone call, and I called my aunt, and my aunt was a very very close mother figure for me. I grew up with her. She was the closest thing to me next to my biological mom. And I just said, I need to know from you, is this true? And she said, yes. She paused and then she said, yes. And immediately after that, I just said, we had a conversation years ago, because we did when I was about, I'm going to say 10, 12 years old. Some random woman has stopped me from high school. I was walking home and she called me and she stopped me and she says, you got to ask your parents to tell you the truth because you're adopted. So, I was a young kid, so I went to my aunt and I told her what happened, and she says, well, I'm going to have to talk to your parents. I don't know anything about that, but I'll let you know. And a few days later, she came back and she said, no, I talked to your parents and you're not adopted. So I left it alone because my aunt was my trusting figure, the woman that I looked up to. And if she said no, it was. So that was my first phone call. And she cried. She was, I know she was so hurt. So I just asked her, why did you not tell me? And she says, because I couldn't. Because it wasn't for me to tell, and your parents had not given me permission to tell you. So, fast forward, because again, what that was, it was life transforming for me. Here I am. I'm 18 years old. I am attending college here in Boston. I don't have a lot of support. And my life was going in one direction, and before I knew it, I was going the opposite way, and I didn't know whether I was coming or going. It was one of the most difficult experiences that I had in front of me to deal with. So fast forward, I of course I needed time to deal with the conversation, and I did of course talk to my parents and had a discussion, and it was a big to-do across my whole family. So eventually, when I was ready, I then went back and I said, I want to know. And I want to know what happened here. What's the story? And I really didn't get a lot of information. Somewhat, my parents were very resistant to give me details about my adoption. They wouldn't give me any details about my biological parents. And, and I, for some reason, again, I was young and I didn't have the emotional capacity to keep asking. I left it alone until one day I was just, for many years later, I started looking for what I thought was my biological family, and I looked and looked and looked and looked, and nothing was happening. My adopted mom, my mom, the one that I call my mom, the one I lost a year and a half ago, she noticed, somehow she just came to her own realization that I needed to find my biological family. So she just said to me, Elex, just call your cousin. She will know. She'll have information for you. And I'm thinking, what? My cousin? And this happened to be a close cousin, somebody that Stephen knew very well. She spent lots of time with me. We're talking about my cousin Aina. And
not to interrupt you, Alex, but that was many years. Now I'm in the picture because we've been together for many years.
Yes,
but that was a number of years when this was happening.
At least 10 years, Stephen.
Exactly,
at least 10 years, because I just couldn't deal with the situation. I needed time, and here and you were there along the way supporting me, and you knew I needed the space to deal, to grieve life the way I thought it was, and to embrace life the way it was now. And I did. So before I call my cousin Aina. Now I have a very close relationships with all my aunties from my father's side, and so I decided I'm gonna call my aunt first, just to see what she knows, because at this point I'm suspect of everyone. And my aunt says to me, Elex, I have no idea what Aina knows, but if whatever she knows, she's never ever said anything to me. So I'm like, okay. And I believed my aunt. Now, they all knew the story, but they didn't. But my aunt really didn't know what exactly Aina knew, because that's not a discussion they had. So I left
And
it
that's her
alone,
daughter.
and that's her daughter. So I left it alone, and I called my cousin, and her words exactly were, "I've been waiting for this call for 10 years." Because see, she knew, because of course my whole family found out. I knew. I found out I was adopted, so she knew, and she waited patiently for me to call and said, "You waited," and she said, "Yes." And ultimately, what happened was she met my biological aunt working at a hospital, because my aunt is a nurse. And my biological aunt connected the names, my last name, Sintron, to hers. And she eventually says, are you related to Elex? And she said, of course I'm related to Elex. It's my cousin. And then my biological aunt says, you do realize he is really my biological nephew, and explained the whole story to my cousin Aina. My biological aunt at that time wanted to be connected with me, but Aina said, I can't do that. I have to let him be the one that does the connecting. So I'm just gonna wait until the right time, and he calls me, and that's what happens. That ultimately that's what happened. Now from that one call to Aina, my cousin, of course I discover I had two biological sisters. One a year older, one lived in Florida, the other one lived in Connecticut.
And they're full biological.
In New Jersey, excuse me, full biological mom and dad. And and meeting them, by the way, that in and of itself is a whole new show, because meeting them was, I mean, it was something I don't even know how I can possibly put it into words, because again, I'm living a life not knowing I'm adopted, and then I'm discovering I have these amazing, beautiful biological sisters from both mom and dad. But in meeting them, then it's when I started understanding my story, because it was my biological sisters who actually told me what happened. So here is the story. The story is my grandparents from my not
Elix,
my
Elix, you may want to take a break before you get into that.
okay. So you know what? We are taking a break. When we come back, I'll continue with the story. So hang in there. We'll be right back. And hello, everyone, and welcome back to Get a Grip with Coach Elix. I'm your host, Coach Elix, and with me, my amazing co host,
Stephen the Medium.
Stephen the Medium, who also is my amazing husband. And today we are talking about adoption and my personal journey of hope and belonging as I am adopted. So, in the last break, I gave you my story. I learned I was adopted at the age of 18. I was already here in Boston going to college at Emerson College, and I was told I was adopted by my female roommate at the time. And at least 10 years went by since that moment when I discovered that my cousin from my adopted family, father's side, knew how I could get a hold of my biological family. So we left it there. So I talked to my cousin. She connected me with my biological aunt. My biological aunt, of course, connected me with my two biological sisters. So at that point, I'm discovering I have two biological sisters from mom and dad. From and So that again, that was mind blowing, and it was my sisters who gave me access to the story as they knew it, and then of course eventually I had an opportunity to also talk to a lot of my aunts on my adopted side as well as my mom and my dad. So what happened was
What you mean on your biological side?
on my both my biological side and my adopted side as well, because it was my adopted side also. Then later on, once they knew I knew, then there was nothing for them to hold on to. The story was in the open, so they felt relieved to be able to talk about it. And here's why. So my father, and this is my adopted family, his parents, grandma, mama tata, papa Pedro, they had a farm, pretty big farm, and I was a working farm, and they employed a lot of people that lived in that community. My adopted parents at the time were young, but my mom was older, about 10 years older than my dad. And she had had a kid, and after that child, she had a hysterectomy, so she could no longer have children. And my dad was younger, and he, of course, wanted to have children. So they were. My dad was very very active in the farm. He was a carbon copy of my grandfather, Papa Pedro, and what happened is because they were younger, they met this younger couple that lived in that neighborhood, and they also worked for my grandparents. And that younger couple was having some issues, and the wife was pregnant at the time, and she did not want to have this child. And if she had the child, she was going to leave it to him. And he had two young girls to care for, and he just really couldn't care for another baby. And my parents approached them and said, we would be willing to adopt your baby. So they came to an agreement. But the agreement at the time, the original agreement, was that they would adopt me officially, but that they would get to see me because, again, they worked at the farm, they lived near the farm, and that's where my parents spent, a lot of their time. I grew up in that farm almost every weekend. And that was the original agreement, that they would get to see me, they would get to know me, they would get to watch me grow, even when I was officially adopted by my parents. And that was good until I was born and I was officially adopted. And at that point, I don't know how long, months after, but it was shortly after I was adopted officially and I was born. My mom, my adopted mom, changed her mind. And she changed her mind because she was scared, perhaps, that they would take me back. I don't know, and I guess it doesn't matter. But she changed her mind, and in my family, my grandparents, my grandmother was the matriarch of that family, and to be honest with you, she really was the boss. And there was a command that was sent across the entire family, and the command was nobody tells Elex that he's adopted. So this will be a family secret, and nobody is going to break that their word. And that was my grandmother who sent the signal, and they also sent a signal that nobody, that this family, my biological family, would not have access to talk to me or to see me. They could see me from a distance, but that was about it. So now imagine listening to your two biological sisters who knew they were 1 and 2 years older when their baby boy was born. So they were they had awareness that they had a brother, and they knew they had a brother. But not only that, they actually got to watch their brother grow up, and they were not allowed to talk to me. My biological family, none of them were allowed. Now, these are people that worked at the farm, and of course, there's a certain level of respect. These are very humble people, so they had a lot of respect for my grandparents and my entire family. So they just watched me from a distance. Now, I had no idea. So I grew up my entire life not knowing anything, but they did. And they watched me from a distance. And my two sisters were devastated by that. They grew up feeling that they were less than. Grew up feeling like they were robbed from their baby brother. And when they got to meet me, I mean, Stephen, you experienced that, but I've never in my life experienced love the way that I experienced from my two sisters the moment that they got to meet me for the first time. It was freaking incredible, you know. And so that's the beginning of the story. I mean, there's so much more because, like I said before, it was like a switch that flipped, and then I started getting these flashbacks, and flashbacks where I remember from being a young boy, in the farm. I remember people staring at me, and I never understood why. And I thought, oh my God, there must be something wrong with me, because there were stares or people whispering, behind me, or like whispering, and I didn't know what the whispers were. And I certainly thought there were whispers about me. Something's wrong with me. And then, of course, I remember my aunts, my aunts, one in particular, Titi Eva, who is super loving. And she would always say to me, you're the special one. You're the special one. You're the special one. But as a young boy, I just didn't understand what that meant. I actually meant there was something really wrong with me and I was special. Like I had some special need or something, because I couldn't understand why I'm the one that's being told I'm special and nobody else. It's being told they're special. And then I even remember some man, showing up at my parents' house, and I was playing outside, and I saw a man, and I went to him and I asked him, "Who are you? Can I help you?" And he says, "It's Mr. Sintrom, my dad, here." And I said, "Sure, I'll go find him." And I went in the house. I went looking for him, and then I came back out, and when I came back out, the man was gone. Later on, I discovered through my biological sisters that was my biological dad, he just wanted to see me. He just wanted to know that who I was and to know what I looked like. And and the same thing, by the way, that woman that stopped me on the way home from high school, that was my biological grandmother. According to what my sisters, I described her, and then my sister says, "Oh my God, that was our grandmother." So that's that is a significant part of my life as being adopted. And don't get me, I am present every day to the privilege, to the life of privilege that I've lived, to the joy that I have in my heart, and the gratefulness that I have in my heart that that I was adopted by my parents and they gave me an amazing life, because the truth is my biological family would not have been able to keep me, and I God only knows where I would have ended up. Certainly not, perhaps not having the life that I had today. So let me stop there, Stephen, because I don't know if this is making any sense for you or for people listening, or if you
Of
have any
course it is.
questions that you can ask me. That any other place I can go from here.
So let's take a break and we will resume as soon
Yeah.
as we come back.
Well, thank you. We'll be right back. And hello, everyone, and welcome back to Get a Grip with Coach Helix. I'm your host, Coach Helix, and with me, my amazing co host.
Stephen Frederick is here.
And today we are having a conversation about adoption, a journey of hope and belonging. And this is my own personal story. So, Stephen, I don't know, do you have any questions for me based on what I said? I
Yeah, well,
shared?
Elix, just talk quickly about your mom, your biological mom and dad, and how that played into the story.
Yeah, so my biological mom, after she gave birth, she just disappeared, and she left my sisters with my biological dad, and but he also he suffered an injury and was disabled, and he just did the best that he could to give the very best life to my two sisters that he could, and he lived in that farm through my entire life as a young kid. So he, along with my two sisters, got to watch me from a distance. But again, because of the respect, the level of respect, these are humble people. The level of respect that they had for my family, my grandparents, they would not dare ever break that code of silence that everyone made, and that goes for everyone, Stephen, and you know it. That code of silence, nobody. I'm telling you, not my aunts, nobody, not one of my cousins, not a single person broke that code of silence. I looking back, Stephen, and finding out at 18, and then being able to sort of like ask myself, how could they kept this? They did. It was a code of silence, and I know, I'm telling you, my grandmother was the matriarch, and what that woman said, that's what went. And when she sent that command across my family, nobody dared to break that command, and it didn't happen. It breaks my heart because a part of me feels, because I didn't know. Of course, if you don't know, you don't know. You don't know what you don't know, right? So I really didn't know. Yet my sisters knew. They got to watch me, and every time I think about that, it breaks my heart. I think about my dad. My dad died before he got the opportunity to meet me, and that's one of the very first things my sister said. He died without meeting you. That's all he wanted. He wanted to meet you. And I didn't get an opportunity to do that. I did get an opportunity to meet my biological mom, and I met her twice because she did live near, in Connecticut, somewhat closer to me, and I did have an opportunity to meet her twice. But again, it's the people that I felt a connection, the closest connection to, was my two biological sisters. Everyone else, and then of course my adoptive family. My mom was my mom. I can't think of her any different than just my mom. That's who she is. That's who she always will be.
What was your biological dad's first name?
Felix. Thank you. So, and that's what they honor him by not changing my name altogether, but by just simply taking the F and calling me Elex. So his name was Felix. I was named after him, and when I got adopted, they took the F out and they kept Elex as my name. And my aunt, the one that I grew up with, she this is the kind of woman she was. She always said to me, "Yeah, we call you Elex because you are our elixir of life." And I grew up really believing that. I'm telling you, because that's all she said to me time and time again. What else?
Well, I will tell you that the first biological sister that you met, Lily, who's in New Jersey, the two of us drove together. And from this perspective, from my perspective of hearing this story about you, finding out at 18 years old that you were adopted is just, it's mind rattling to me, right? Because it's something that I've never experienced, and trying to, I guess my brain was more about watching you, making sure you were okay, and how was this going to play out, and being very defensive when we were heading down, and that you were going to meet for the first time ever the first time meeting one of your biological sisters in New Jersey. And
Yes.
both of us didn't know what we were walking into. We didn't know what she was like, what her personality was like. We knew nothing, right? So obviously you communicated with her prior to getting there, but I do remember pulling up, I will never forget this, pulling up to her home and walking, and I remember it had just rained a lot, so we were walking and it was like a little bit of mud around, and those visuals are just like etched in my brain, and knocking on the door and Lily opening the door, and just her expression was it was magical. Is doesn't even probably cut it, Elix. And of course your expression too. And the thing was, you could tell, and I wasn't a medium. I didn't even know I was a medium at that point. But the difference between you and her, with her knowing all this time since she was this little girl that she has a brother, and on a side note, I know this is your story, but I will just include it here, that we found out that both biological sisters at some point called and wrote into Oprah to try to ask Oprah to help them find you. So I mean, that was the level of what these girls are going through. So her, like, finally meeting you, and your expression of, who are you? You're my biological sister, but I don't know who you are. I don't even know anything about you. And that was incredible. The hugs, the tears, the emotions, and just standing watching all of it was something that I really feel like and I know I was very privileged to get to see. And of course, the great thing is, when we ultimately left Lily, and I think that the following day or so we met for dinner or something, I got to just to be your sounding board and ask how you are, and just ask questions, and that was pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, yeah, and it was a breakthrough, yet it was unsettling. There were so many emotions that I felt, all at the same time, by the way. Like scare, confused, happy, elated, all of it at the same time. And by the way, then I traveled to Florida to meet my other sister by myself. You weren't there, and here we are. We met at the airport, the two of us, and honestly, Stephen, I couldn't. If I could never, I would never have believed that this is what was going to happen, because the moment we met, it was like an immediate connection. It's like I've known my sister forever and ever and ever and ever. And I stayed with her the whole weekend, and it was just incredible. So I guess because we're at the top of the hour, Stephen, and so we may have to just sort of wrap it for today. But this is a conversation that will continue. Next week we have Stephen the medium. So the week after we'll continue. We'll do part 2 of this conversation. But I guess the point here is the adoption is a big deal, and I'm really glad. Actually, I'm really glad that in today's world, people are really open about adoption. It's not really kept as a secret, because I think that keeping it as a secret can be very damning for everyone. For everyone, I know my parents didn't know better. They didn't have any bad intentions. My whole family, nobody wanted to hurt anyone, but there were so many people that were hurt in the process, and and still hurting, because both my sisters are still hurting, and you know that, Stephen.
Yes.
That will be a forever thing. But again, that also brings me back to being so present to the privilege life that I've lived, and so grateful for everything that I have. So I hope these. Yeah, go ahead, Stephen.
I was just going to say, I'm so excited that we're going to do a second part to this, because there's definitely more to the story.
There's a lot more. So fasten your seatbelt. A lot more to come. So,
it's going to be a bumpy ride.
It's going to be a bumpy ride, but it's going to be worth your while. So, Stephen, tell people what you're up to this weekend, where they can find you, and how they can connect with you.
Well, it's brief. You can find me on social media, Stephen the Medium, and you can go to my website, stephenthemedium.com, to find out everything about Stephen the Medium.
Beautiful. And you can find me at Coach Elix anywhere in social media. And if you're not connected with me, you should be connected with me. What's wrong with you? And with that said, thank you, Mark Clark, for producing our show. Thank you, Jim Jones, for managing our radio station, and for every single member of the staff. Thank you for all that you do. And to you, Stephen, thank you for being my sounding board, my rock in my world.
Well, it's a pleasure, and get ready, because next week is Through the Static. The last Friday of the month, I'm back doing readings, so we're going to have spirit everywhere in that hour, and then the following week we can continue this story. So it's good.
Beautiful. Win-win for everyone.
Yes.
Have a wonderful weekend, everyone. We'll see you again next week with Stephen the Medium, Through the Static.
Bye-bye.